Okay, we're live. Got to let it breathe just for a moment here while we make sure we got green check marks from Twitter, YouTube, and our great Facebook community. So hang tight, everybody. Jazz Nation, really excited to be back and talking with you. And we are good. So welcome in, everybody. We have returned. It is the Frozen Rope Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, the deputy editor of the Frozen Rope, Patrick Byrnes. And Pat, uh, we took a couple of weeks off. Dead time on the NBA calendar. Nothing happening with the Jazz, but we're back because things are rolling. We had media day yesterday, training camp in Hawaii. We got the first preseason game rolling over this coming weekend, so it feels good, dude, to kind of be back in the saddle. A, you and I, and then B, things are happening around Jazz HQ.
There's a ton to talk about. And yeah, the first game's just around the corner. First preseason game, Sunday? We should get some answers there as far as maybe a starting five possibly.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a lot to talk about.
I'm glad you brought that up because, we've talked about it a few times, obviously during the off season, like the depths of the NBA desert off season. But it's worth kind of re-examining now that we're on the doorstep of the season, what this starting five is going to be. A lot of new blood, some changes, some different things. Jazz brought back Jordan Clarkson. Jazz brought back, or I should say, Taylor Horton Tucker opted to return. But things have changed relative to the 3 first-round picks they made, especially Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks. It's just a lot up in the air. John Collins. So first things first, the number one has been a hotly scrutinized, debated topic. Who's going to be the starting point guard for this team? Who do you got now that we are literally on the doorstep of the season?
It's still a tough call, and it really is crazy that we're on the doorstep of the regular season, and we still can't come up with a firm answer. There's probably, I'm not going to say Keontae George is in the running because I think he's going to have to earn his minutes once the season starts. He can definitely take over once the season plays, but there's 4 or 5 guys that could start at the one, and we just don't know who it's going to be. But we can make an educated guess, and people can argue about it on Twitter till they're blue in the face, but it's going to come down to close scrimmages that are going on right now that we don't see, that we don't know what's going on, and it's going to be decided then. And you just have to trust that the coaching staff is going to make the right decision.
It wouldn't be a shock. And by the way, Car Wash channel in the house on YouTube. Good to see you. We've missed you. Hope you're doing well. And those of you who are with us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you got a topic, you got a question, you got a comment, we want to hear it. Put it in the chat. That's why we do these podcasts as a live show, because we want to engage with you. So for what that's worth. But Pat, it wouldn't surprise me if something unfolded on the Keontae George front relative to how things kind of shook out back when Donovan Mitchell was a rookie, not a day one starter. There was an entrenched veteran ahead of him, but push comes to shove, you're 10, 12 games into the season, and look who's all of a sudden getting the minutes.
Yeah, I think it could be a situation, kind of a Donovan Mitchell, Rodney Hood situation back in, I think it was 2016. Yeah, I mean, I think Keontae is going to have to earn the job on the court in regular season games, but he could definitely do what Donovan did. I think the big question with Keontae isn't offensively what he can do. I'm pretty confident. I think people are pretty confident what he can do offensively. Is he going to be able to hold up defensively? And that's going to be the big question, and we're going to find out real soon.
2017, for what it's worth, Pat, 2017, and it seems like it should have been. It seems longer than that, but
yeah,
time flies. But Keontae George, we shall see. It's kind of interesting, Pat, how he went from being really educated Jazz fans, and obviously those of us who do this for a buck. They knew what Keontae George, what his upside was, but I don't think anybody really expected him to become the rookie story for the Jazz, at least so quickly, especially in light of, you have a top 10 pick, Taylor Hendricks, and I know no one's seen him yet because, he didn't play Summer League, etc. But really cool to see how Keontae George has kind of built up a head of steam, pardon me, but how he translates that into production on the court, whether he's able to leapfrog any veterans remains to be seen. Summer League is Summer League. These are the games that count.
Yeah, the thing with Keontae George, and I think any starter, you're lining your minutes up with the other team's best offensive players. So he's got to hold up. He's got to be able to hold up defensively. If you're scoring and creating, and that's great on offense, but you got to be able to play some defense at least a little bit. And I think that's what I'm a little bit worried about with the backcourt. I think I wrote an article where someone made a prediction that the backcourt was going to be Clarkson and Sexton and starting, and I didn't like that idea at all. Like that to me, that's like the worst case scenario, just because you're going to have if you're Luka or you're a all-star guard, who do you want the Jazz to start on?
Right.
You want their worst defensive players to be their starter,
right?
So hopefully it'll be kind of combination of maybe if Jordan Clarkson is going to be the point, if they want to put him at the point, that's fine. But you got to put Abaji at the 2 if that's the case. If you want to start Sexton, you got to be able to at the 1. You got to start, maybe Chris Dunn, or Sexton at the 2.
Right.
You got to start maybe Dunn at the 1, or possibly Taylor Horton-Tucker at the 1. So there is going to be some juggling, but I think defensively you got to be careful as far as who you're starting, because it might look good on paper offensively, but at the end of the day, you got to hold up on the defensive side.
Plus, you bring up the defensive thing, but one of those guys, you probably want them coming off the bench, being that first guy in off the bench to bring you some offense and the ability to create. But there's been a lot of different rumors. There have been a lot of different predictions on the 1 and the 2, and we'll know here pretty soon. What about the 3 and the 4? How do you see that shaking out?
Well, the 3 is going to be Markkanen. The question on the 3, who's going to back up Markkanen? That is a big question mark. And I've written in a few articles that, I could see, because there's just that logjam in the backcourt, that they could defer those minutes to either Taylor Horton-Tucker or possibly Abaji at the 3. We got Luka, who can play some 3. You got Fontecchio that can play some 3. But I think when you're looking at who's going to win some jobs, all things being equal, you have to, and I guess it could go either way, but all things being equal, you got to figure that the jobs or the minutes are going to go to the players that are under contract maybe a little bit longer, that they have more of an invested interest in them, right. And that would leave Fontecchio and Taylor Horton-Tucker on the outside looking in, all things being equal.
Right.
But on the other end, someone could also make the argument, and it's a good argument, that, Taylor Horton-Tucker and Fontecchio might get some minutes because they're looking to trade them and they want to showcase their talents, and they got those expiring contracts. And if they're sitting the bench, what are you going to get for them? Probably nothing. So it could go either way. And Will Hardy's got a tough job, and he's going to be criticized no matter what decisions he makes. You know how Twitter is. People are gonna scrutinize no matter what he says, and it's a close call on a lot. I have a different opinion on who should be the starter probably every other day, so it's a tough call.
Yeah, it's kind of a good problem to have, though, if you're Will Hardy. And hey, welcome to the NBA. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. At the end of the day, your best bet, your best hope, if you're a coach. And by the way, Lisa, what's up? Good to see you in the chat on YouTube. Is to stack some dubs in the standings. You do that. And you let the chips fall, and who cares how and who is questioning you or scrutinizing you. But John Collins, how's he factoring in? Obviously, the 4, you got Walker Kessler. You got some length. You got some versatile dudes at the 3, 4, and 5 that can really bring a new kind of energy, I guess, to this team that we didn't see, with obviously Markkanen being the linchpin.
Yeah, the 4 and the 5, we got the starters already cemented in. I think the big question is, where does Taylor Hendricks fit? With that group, most likely won't be the backup 5. Olynyk, they could give him some 5 minutes. That would free up some time as the backup 4. But, right now, Taylor Hendricks is kind of on the outside looking in. I don't see him getting consistent minutes. He might get some minutes in foul trouble, injury, stuff like that. But until Kelly Olynyk gets traded, or until he really shows, Hardy that he's the guy, he he pulls a Keontae George, pulls a Donovan Mitchell, and strong arms himself into the rotation, it's going to be a tough go for him. But like Abaji last year, he didn't get any time in the beginning. Eventually he worked his way in, and I can see that being a similar situation with Taylor Hendricks.
That's true. He was an afterthought for half the season.
He was.
And then he came in big time in terms of post All-Star break, man. Like, he really emerged, and you saw what the potential could be for him. And now it's hard to imagine this team's outlook in 23-24 without him as a key player. And that's how things can change and morph and evolve, obviously, in the NBA. And it's really fun to watch. But it'll be interesting, Pat. We were talking about this before we hit the old go live button, that when that first preseason game rolls out next weekend, or this coming weekend, we'll probably get a pretty good idea of how the coaches are viewing this starting five, and then it won't be a question.
The one thing that kind of shift gears a little bit. The one thing that I think Jazz fans could look forward to is a season of not tanking. Sorry, 1 second.
It's okay. Pat will be right back. Hang tight with him real quick. Any notion? Here, I muted your mic and I unmuted it, so you're good now. But
okay,
finish your thought there. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, the Drew Holiday, the fact that the Jazz were in on the Drew Holiday situation just tells you that they're not in a tanking frame of mind. They're playing to win. They're going all in, and they're going to try to win as many games as possible. So the fans, there's still some fans out there that think we should tank, think that this roster isn't good enough. But, you can put those thoughts to bed. The Jazz are going to 100% try to make the playoffs this year.
It's going to be fun to see. When we are back next week on Tuesday, we're going to have a lot to talk about. I mean, we're going to have the preseason game in the books. We're going to have all manner of storylines. It's going to be a gas. So this is kind of, even though it's the first episode, Pat, of the Frozen Rope podcast kicking off again, it's also kind of the last of us not having too much as far as new stuff to really get into. But one more week, of course, we're going to be back at you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. It's going to be a gas. But one more week between now and then, we're going to learn a lot about this team, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year. Like you always go into the year with, high expectations, you're excited, but I really think that there's something with this Jazz team. I think that there's enough talent there where they, just like last year, I think they're going to surprise some people. I think these people, the odds makers that have them at 35, 36 wins, I like the over on that. I really do. Unless they get the injury bug, I like the over on the wins this year.
Yep, knock on wood. But guys, another short episode. We're just scratching the surface. Next week, you could probably expect this to be a solid half an hour episode of the Frozen Rope podcast. And we look forward to seeing and talking with each and every one of you then. In the meantime, make sure you keep it with the Frozen Rope. Connect with our deputy editor, Patrick Byrnes, on Twitter at PBurnsNBA. You can connect with myself at Chad and Jensen as well. And then, of course, Frozen Rope on Twitter. Easiest way to find us, si.com/NBA/Jazz, where we're breaking down everything relative to your team, 3, 4, 5 articles a day. You know this by now. So we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for reading the articles. Thank you for watching and listening to the podcast. And Pat, this was a blast, dude. Have a great week, and we'll talk next week.
Yeah, the next time we talk, we're going to have some answers. It's not going to be more questions. It's going to be answers. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Jared, if you be tanking, you be wanking. Yeah. We all know what that means, especially the people in the UK, that the particular definition of that word. But guys, love you, appreciate you. For Patrick Byrnes, I'm Chad Jensen. This is the Frozen Rope podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time.